so when it comes to visual storytelling, you really have to take the vanity away from it, even if it's your company, and say, I'm not looking for perfection, I'm looking for authenticity. And that is what I think is the key to visual storytelling. What is rich? And what is different from Rich to Mikaya, and what is that different from someone else, and how we choose to show up. And if we do know who we are, the two or three things that make us who we are, then that's what makes us visual storytellers. I can always say, you know, I am probably comfort first. I'm probably going to be in a environment where I'm outgoing, but a lot of people don't know that I'm a natural introvert. So when I position myself, I make sure that these things that are a part of who I am, whether it be my faith or my family, you're not going to have a conversation with me and not hear me talk about my faith or my family. So when you're building a brand, especially visually, how does that show up? What does this room say about STEM Plug Podcast?
Yo, plug me in. Plug me in to the STEM Plug Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the STEM Plug Podcast. And you know, here on the STEM Plug Podcast, we plug you in with amazing entrepreneurs and innovators doing some amazing things in science, technology, engineering, and math. And today is no different. We have an amazing entrepreneur that is doing some amazing things, helping companies brand themselves in the tech space. So we have Mikaya, a PR strategist that's going to plug us in on everything that she does with tech companies and really just plug us in with her background. So how's it going today?
It's great. It's great. We're going between summer, sometimes here in North Carolina, and then we're switching it up and doing a little bit of winter. So all is well. Thank you for having me, Rich.
I appreciate you plugging in. You know, like I like to say here on the STEM Plug Podcast, you know, I really like to really hear and learn from your journey and just really plug it in with my listeners, right? So I first met you at your TED Talk, so shout out to you. You killed it. Very inspiring. And really just wanted to continue to connecting. So we appreciate you coming through.
Well, I appreciate you coming. As you know, TED is all about tech, and I'm all about tech. You said I'm an entrepreneur, but I think that's far too generous. I actually work for a company called VSCPR, and they are based in California, and we do strategic comms specifically for tech, venture capital, B2B, B2C, and really just get brands the tools they need to tell their stories. And for this last year that I've been with that company since being in news, I've learned so much. I now am able to take what I learned about messaging from being in front of the camera and help those tech companies, those startups and entrepreneurs be able to really connect with the public.
Wow. No, that's amazing. So let's go back a little bit in your background, right? So you know, you were formerly on television as a news anchor, right? So how does your experience, you know, in journalism really shape your transition into the world of PR for tech companies?
I think when you spend as long as I spent in journalism, which was 10 years, I can't even believe it's been that long, being a reporter and news anchor, it shapes everything. What basically I learned in that 10 years is the secret sauce of what the media is looking for, the way to get stories out there. Because what I would do sitting at the anchor desk is I would hear people saying, why don't you cover my company? And why haven't you covered this? And I'm like, because you don't have a real person in your story. Because you're trying to sell a product. And this isn't one of these like sales commercials. This is the news. So what I find is so many companies have great things to say, but they don't know how to say it. And that's where I come in. I did the teleprompter thing for 10 years. I know what the media is looking for, so I'm able to really synthesize that message and make it digestible for the public.
So what are like some of the key lessons that you learned in your experience about really effective communication for tech companies specifically?
Say less. And it's hard, right? So tech companies, because we're so in the weeds and we so love our products and we so love what we're doing, if I say, what do you do? And 10 minutes later, you're still talking, we shouldn't even still be there. So the CEO of my company that I work for, VSC, actually taught me a valuable lesson. He said, we used to have to do the elevator pitch. He said it's an escalator pitch. So what you used to have as maybe 60 seconds is really, really shortened. And so if I say, what do you do? We should be able to use a couple of words. And we sometimes call that an X for Y. So we are Uber for food. So that would be we are Uber Eats. So we should be able to really simply say what we do and do it on different levels. We should be able to do that for our investors. We should be able to do that for our customers. And even for those who potentially have no idea or interest in anything in STEM.
Wow. Now that's so important. And me, I feel like I'm a lifelong listener. I love listening to people. I can easily talk about the things that I do and different stuff, but I really enjoy learning from others, right? So even when you're introducing your brand or different things that you got going on, I feel like it's important to listen to your end user as well, not just be talking all day, right? So that's really important. How would you say your educational background really influences public relations, especially within tech companies?
So I'm going to send my mom this section of the interview because if she could hear that question, she would laugh. She would say her educational background. And that's because my mom, she probably says I'm a lot more street smart than I am book smart.
Hey.
But granted, I graduated from Harvard with a 4.0.
Yeah.
But that was a little bit later in life. And I say that because when I went to elementary school, grade school, and undergrad, I was a C student. My parents said, see your way through it. And they were like, literally, just get C's. Just finish. That's all we need you to do. And a lot of it, I was a social butterfly. I was distracted. And when I did go to Harvard, I, at the time, was here in Raleigh working as a morning reporter. That means my schedule starts at 3 a.m. So I was working third shift overnights. So I'd do that 3 a.m. shift. And then I'd go to night school, and I did that for 3 years, in addition to flying back and forth to Cambridge for intensive weekends. So when you say, what did my educational background teach me? I maybe wasn't a straight A student, but it taught me how to hustle. I knew that I can outwork you. I may not know the information like everyone else, but I can always know who to ask the right information. And I also learned the importance of relationships. That degree that I got from Harvard is now why I can teach at NC State. And so I teach visual storytelling at NC State for the next generation of storytellers to be able to hone their skills. So education's everything to me. And I think being a granddaughter of a sharecropper who did not ever learn to read or write and only had a third grade education, I would never say anything other than education is the key to really breaking any generational gaps that there may be and reaching your own success.
Wow. So, all right, now I want to dive into this a little bit more, the visual storytelling, right? So our listeners listening to the STEM Plug podcast, plug them in, plug us in on how one should be telling their story. How does that start?
Oh, the visual storytelling's the hardest part because I think there's the vanity aspect of it. Everyone wants to look so good. And Rich, you'll vouch for this. At no point did I ask you or Joe, how did my shot look? What do I look like? Is my hair okay? So you have to let go of that. And I think we are now a generation of people that want to look perfect. And whether that's on our Instagram, our YouTube, our product pages, and we aren't okay with just saying, I just walked in the door. If my hair is straight, I hope it's straight. But if it's not, it's okay. And so when it comes to visual storytelling, you really have to take the vanity away from it, even if it's your company, and say, I'm not looking for perfection, I'm looking for authenticity. And that is what I think is the key to visual storytelling. What is rich? And what is different from Rich to Mikaya? And what is that different from someone else? And how we choose to show up. And if we do know who we are, the two or three things that make us who we are, then that's what makes us visual storytellers. I can always say, I am probably comfort first. I'm probably going to be in a environment where I'm outgoing, but a lot of people don't know that I'm a natural introvert. So when I position myself, I make sure that these things that are a part of who I am, whether it be my faith or my family, you're not going to have a conversation with me and not hear me talk about my faith or my family. So when you're building a brand, especially visually, how does that show up? What does this room say about STEM Plug Podcast? What does it say about you? Yeah. I think it's no coincidence that your hat matches the sign right behind your head. So that's visual storytelling.
Yeah. Nah, wow, that's amazing. And I guess I want to go back to that part that you just said about like wanting everything to be perfect, right? And I literally just had a discussion with somebody that I was talking to that is, has a startup in a business, and they don't have a website yet though. But they don't want to put this website out to like everything is perfect. But I'm like, you just gotta go out there and just put it out there. Like, even if it's something, it might not be perfect right away. You can kind of start to build it up. And like that hardest thing to do with anything is to start. We fail to start on different things because we want everything to be perfect. That's amazing.
Yeah, just tell the story. Just
Yeah.
what does it look like? And to your point about a website, if you're building a product page, of course, we want to know what the product does and we
Yeah.
want to be able to understand it.
Yeah.
But going back and forth about your product images, guess what? Just get something out there. Just get a narrative out there. Just reach out to that reporter.
Yeah.
Just reach out to that investor and take the feedback, because also your opinion's not the only opinion that matters. You need people to tell you, I know you get it, but I don't get it. And then you have to take it and not take it personally. So it's just about having, I really think, the right people in the conversation to get you started.
Wow. So are there any specific things? I know you were saying about like with tech companies, you tell them to say less, right? Are there any specific details that you've seen that you all as a firm have been able to work with them on that's been able to help them scale?
Oh, yes. Any kind of media training. Oh my goodness. Media training is a game changer. And a lot of people say, I built the company. I know the company. I should be fine, right? It's just the local news. It's just the local paper. Or they want the media placement and they said, I emailed the reporter. Why did she not get back to me? I sent her the entire pamphlet, our entire messaging. And it's like, well, that's why she didn't get back to you or he didn't get back to you, because a reporter has 2 seconds to check an email. Anything more than 2 or 3 paragraphs, and it's over. So when we talk about media training, we have to understand who we're talking to and what it is we want them to take away. So that media training, I've seen CEOs, founders, CMOs go from really wordy, complex narratives to being able to say, this is what I do and this is why you should care. Oh, I get chills all over when I see it. And then you see them on television or you see them in that Forbes article or the Wall Street Journal, and you're like, that's why you hire someone in PR.
Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna do something kind of different here.
Okay.
Let's take STEM Plug.
Okay.
Give me an example. I'll give you an overview of what the mission of STEM Plug is, right? And give me an example of what one sentence should just be that should be in public relations, right? So the mission of STEM Plug, I would say, is that we want to promote STEM in a fun and engaging way and really show everyone that they can relate their personality to every area of science, technology, engineering, and math.
Tell me what's your target demographic?
What's my target demographic? My target demographic is everyone.
Is never everyone, right? So that's part of our branding, right? So is it your grandma? Probably not.
And I'm saying all this because I want to roll out an example.
Right.
It's really not everyone, but
right. So it's the specificity, right?
Yeah.
So you have to know what's amazing is if I was like, hey, Rich, I'm about to sell clothes, you would be like, for who? Women, men, and everybody.
Yeah.
And what's the aesthetic? Are we talking urban? Are we talking runway? Everything. And it's like, ooh, when you're everything to everybody, you're not doing anything well. So when you talk about STEM Plug, it might be you're trying to inform the next generation or millennials or Gen Z. So then what you might say is we are STEM, but for the TikTok generation. Simply put, everybody knows what the TikTok generation is. We're all in the TikTok generation. I just got in it, mind you. I'm late to the party, but I'm here, right?
Yeah.
So there's this idea of I'm trying to appeal to the TikTok generation, which is everybody wants everything quick, fast. Quick, fast. Tell me what it is in 2 seconds. I'm not going to read the article. Tell me it in a clip. So for the TikTok generation, we have to take something that seems maybe longer form and make it super digestible. So it's STEM. And it's understanding STEM, but for the TikTok generation. And I can tell by the aesthetic here that being able to make this seem relatable and fun, and you don't have to be somewhere in a lab to understand STEM or in front of a computer. That is what I think you're hoping to accomplish.
There you go. Nah, you hit it right in the nose. Nah, that was a great exercise.
Y'all, he tried to throw me a curveball. Which one's my camera? There we go. All of them. He tried to throw me a curveball, and I got him.
Nah, that was good. That was good. So okay, so what are some of the challenges that you face though with being in PR? Is there any challenges that
So there's the obvious challenge. I'm a black woman, right? Let's just talk about it, right? PR is a female-dominated industry, so that's one thing. But when you look at the demographic of the female population or male population, only 12% are African American. 12%. That is a really low number. And I came from journalism where there's a lot of intentionality put on making sure there's one black anchor and a white anchor and a minority one anchor or minority two anchor because they understand that they must reflect their audience. When you enter into PR, it's a lesser known thing. And that's nothing about the firms or anything. That's no one's fault. But just raising awareness for people who look like me, that not only PR, but tech PR. Now I'm in tech. Now I'm talking about STEM. I rarely see people who look like me. I can count on one hand how many calls I've been on with a black woman in the last year. But all that being said, my presence, right, is going to indicate that. And I am not necessarily newer employee. There are a lot of black female, younger employees that look up to me. And they want to say, oh, well, Mikaya's doing it. I can be like Mikaya one day. So I do understand that a challenge I face is sometimes I'm a voice for people who are not at the table yet. And I have to figure out what that means for a black female founder, for a black founder, for a black female PR person. So it's in all facets, but there are a lot of narratives that I think I'm working on every single day, knowing that I am one of one right now.
Yeah. And I see you do a lot of like within mentorship and stuff like that. Do you want to share anything with that?
I do. So Rich is saying I do a lot of mentorship. That's a little bit of an understatement. You can say it because people in my life are like, you seem like a giver. Like you are always giving. And that is true. Yeah. I have a scholarship that I've started for a couple years now for the Miss North Carolina pageant. And I do that because I want women to be able to afford the education that they want, and sometimes it's not feasible. So we do an essay submission, and I'm able to facilitate that annually, and am a benefactor for that. I also, as a lecturer at NC State, all my students have my phone, and they are blowing it up all day, every day. Mikaya, I want to work where you worked. Mikaya, I want to be what you were or are or will be or what have you. And I'm reviewing resumes, doing interview prep, and that's just what I do just in the PR realm. My dad is a public servant, and by that I mean he's a politician. He's been elected my whole life and is still elected, and he taught me that I am nothing if I am not serving. And so I don't think I go a week without giving in some way, whether that be of my time, financially, with service. So there's just a lot of it that's just in my core values.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm the same way, and I live my life as like this is deep, but we're going to be gone from this world longer than we're here, right? So what do you want to like leave instead of just take, right? A lot of people live their life of just wanting to take from people, but you're really installing in other people and giving. It really comes back to you in tenfold, like when you look at it like that. So I really respect that. That's dope.
That's how my parents are, both of them. I mean, we were always giving. It's like, and I remember, when you're a kid and you're a brat, and it's like, why do I have to? And that was just not an option.
Yeah.
And when I look back at the most important people in my life, they are not the CEOs and presidents of companies. It is the people who maybe couldn't do anything for me, but give me a smile and mentored me and talked to me and saw me on my good days and bad days. When I graduated from the University of Georgia, the cafeteria staff got together and gave me a card. And my dad was like, the fact that the cafeteria staff thought that highly of you and you had that many conversations that they didn't want to see you off without that tells me that you treated the president of the school just like you would treat them. And that's what he was most proud of. You can ask him today. He'd say that.
Nah, that's dope. Okay, so let's plug in a little bit more, right? A tech company out here, I'm looking to brand myself better, get myself out there a little bit more. How can they get in touch with you all and whatever everything that you're doing to help them kind of grow their tech business?
You can follow the company page, which is VSCPR, so VSC. And then I am Mikaya. I'm the only Mikaya you will ever meet in your life. And so if you type in Mikaya on any social media platform, the rest will be filled in for you. My last name's Thurmond, Thurmond.
Okay. Do you have any current initiatives or any projects you're working on that you want to share with our audience? I love it.
You were at my TED Talk. You know I can't say these things, so I can say these things.
Nah, that's dope. But Mikaya, we really appreciate you plugging us in, just talking about storytelling and personal brand and everything for tech companies and really learning more about your story. So I appreciate you plugging that in for our listeners. Make sure you stay tuned. Plug into Mikaya's TED Talk. Amazing. I'm telling you, you're going to leave inspired for sure. But we appreciate you plugging in on another episode of STEM Plug Podcast. Make sure you subscribe and like and stay plugged in.